Hey guys, it's Coach Ryan Knapp from Miles to Go Endurance. Today we're talking running shoes. Grab a beer, grab some wine, grab some scratch, grab whatever you're drinking, and get a little bit of food because this is going to be about 20-30 minutes. We're going in depth on running shoes. We're not doing a 1-2 minute shoe primer. We're not reviewing any shoes. We're talking about running shoes as a whole. And I'm going to make sure that you're armed with the knowledge when you go into a running shoe store or you want to learn or talk about running shoes that you know what you're talking about. Along with coaching at Miles to Go Endurance, I work run specialty, which is a fancy term for selling shoes. So I've worked run specialty in Kansas City, run specialty in Denver, and now run specialty in Boston, where my wife and I live. And there's so much misconception that exists. And today I want to just lay it out there. I'm going to shoot straight. I don't hesitate or pull punches when I talk about shoes or when I talk about running because that's not how anyone learns. So we're just going to get rolling and we're going to talk about a lot of different things. I'm going to open this blind here. Yeah, a little bit more light. Awesome. Okay, so let's get rolling. This is an ASICS Gel Nimbus 15, okay? This is a neutral shoe from ASICS. Now, let's look at the construction of shoes, and then we're gonna talk about the types and go through. So we'll go through the construction fast, okay? Upper, the top part of the shoe. The upper is what gives the shoe its feel in terms of how it feels fitting around your foot. So some companies make what's called a single piece upper. That is basically, there will be one piece from heel all the way to the front. So this is a single piece upper, all right? Those darker green spots, or these spots here, are actually just they're called like welded on. They're just heated on. There's no stitching at all that exists except for this little spot on the other side. So this would be pretty much a single piece upper. A multi-piece upper is going to be this, where you can actually see that there's stitching on the shoe. And that's going to give you that wrapped around feel. A single piece upper can do that too, but it just depends on the company. It's just different technology. Frankly, it's just gonna make the shoe feel a certain way. You're not gonna get any performance benefits or anything out of it. All right, now we're gonna skip and go to the bottom of the shoe and talk about the outsole. So the outsole of the shoe is essentially the tread. So most of them will have rubber. They'll have some of this foam, some of the midsole foam will be exposed, and it might have a plastic piece here. That plastic piece is just called a shank. And the shank is just going to give the shoe a little bit of rigidity. So if there's no shank, so this Evo Ferris has no shank. This is a Mizuno Evo Ferris, by the way. If this has no shank, I can basically just twist it like this, okay? If the shoe is more rigid and has a shank and has a little bit more structure to it, then I can twist it a little bit, but I'm not going to be able to twist it that much. And then if I have a shoe that has a huge shank or just super supportive, I basically can't twist this thing at all. So the shoes can be made more rigid with the outsole, okay? And with the combination of the midsole too, and we'll talk about that in a minute. The outsole of the shoe, the shape of the shoe is called the last. This shape is called a last, okay? So it's like the chassis that the shoe is built on. Now you can have a normal traditional last, which looks like this, or you can have a straight lasted shoe. Right, this is a straight lasted shoe compared to the Nimbus. This is a Brooks Addiction, a very, very supportive motion control shoe. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But you can see the difference. Whereas the Brooks, this guy, is going to be way straighter from the toes all the way to the heel than the Nimbus, which I'm holding, which is the pink one, which is wider in the midfoot, or wider in the forefoot, gets a little skinnier as it comes around to the midfoot, and then gets a little bit wider in the heel. All right. Now, let's talk about the midsole. This is the midsole of the shoe. So this white stuff, this gel, and this pink stuff comprises the midsole of the shoe. The midsole is normally EVA, so it's just blown foam, basically. EVA is just a fancy term for a type of foam. And then whatever cushioning the specific company uses. So let's talk about ASICS. ASICS uses gel as their cushioning in the shoe. So there's this gel here, right? And that's how they use to give cushion along with the EVA. Whereas if I were to show you the Saucony Triumph, this is my wife's shoe, this is just foam, and Saucony uses straight foam. They call it Power Grid Plus. They use that for their cushioning. So the difference in shoes in terms of the midsole is generally how they do their cushioning. Because a lot of people say, well, what makes an ASICS better? Or I hear ASICS are better. Like, it's not that they're better or worse, because any of these shoes you could wear. It just matters what type of cushioning they're using, and that's what their selling point is most of the time. So ASICS will give the nimbus, and the nimbus is a cloud, and so they have, because you're on gel and it's supposed to feel like being on a cloud, you know, all that marketing stuff. Whereas the Triumph has Power Grid Plus and it's super plush and all this. So that's what they're trying to sell you, and they're trying to sell you those midsole materials as being the best. Now, let's look at the structure of the midsole for a little bit, because this is where people talk about minimalism, okay? This is what a lot of people want to hear. The amount of stuff that's underneath your foot from here to the ground, so from your foot to the ground, is called stack height. That's the fancy term, okay? There's a difference in stack height. So stack height is measured in two spots. Stack height is measured from your heel, and stack height is measured right here in your midfoot. The difference from the heel to the midfoot in stack height is called drop or offset. So when you hear someone say this shoe has 10 millimeter drop or 10 millimeter offset, what that means is that, as an example, this would be 20 millimeters of stuff, and in the front of the shoe, it would be 10 millimeters of stuff. 20 minus 10 is 10. You would get a 10 millimeter offset. That's what they're talking about when people are discussing drop and discussing traditional shoes and minimal shoes. In the shoe industry, most of us consider a minimal shoe to be 4 millimeters less of drop. So in this example, the Evo Ferris is 0 drop. So there's 0 difference from the amount of stuff in the heel to the amount of stuff in the front of the shoe. Whereas, say, the Saucony Triumph is going to be 8 millimeters of difference in the heel to the front of the shoe. And 8 millimeters, 10 millimeters, up to 12 is considered traditional. And then usually from 8 to 4, you'll find a jump. There's not too many that are 6. Some sit in a 6 millimeter drop category, but it's not too common to see that. Okay, so that's what we're looking at when we're looking at minimalism. But there's another category that exists with minimalism. These big Hokas, right? You see these. I wish I had brought one home, but you're seeing these massive Hoka shoes, because I don't run in them here because I don't really like them that much myself. But so you're seeing these shoes that have these huge stack heights. I mean, the stack height on them is like 40 millimeter, 50 millimeter. It's massive. So you can have a shoe that is a maximal stack height. So that's what we call maximal. If it's basically double what's normal, it's called a maximal shoe. So you can have a maximal stack height like a Hoka, but if you take the difference from the heel to the toe, right? That's what we want to look at. You can still have a minimal drop heel to toe, but a maximal stack height. Example, this would be 50 millimeters. This would be 46 millimeters. So it's a 4 millimeter offset, a 4 millimeter difference from the heel to toe, but it's a maximal shoe. So there's kind of this new category that exists that we have to basically talk about, because so many people want to try to run in Hokas. So that's where you're looking at the midsole. You're really looking at how much stuff is in there, what it's made out of, and what the difference is from the heel to the toe. Those are the important things that you're looking at from the midsole. Now let's look at the types of shoes that exist. And so I'm going to bring up this guy. Where's my guy? I'm singing. There we go. Awesome. So I've got women's shoes here, and we're going to talk about them. There's 3 main types of shoes that exist, and it's based on, okay, step back, disclaimer. I can't talk about all the different types of gait and different types of shoes and what I think about them, because that's going to be a video that lasts like from now until the end of time. So I'm going to give a brief rundown about the types of shoes and then talk a little bit about pronation and do that. So when you go into a running shoe store, they're going to, I have to clarify these things because there's some stores that do a really good job, the stores I've worked at, frankly, and there's some people in stores that do a really crappy job. If you go into a reputable running store, or you're with your doctor or someone, they're going to take a look at how you're moving. So they take a look at your gait, which is essentially how you're walking and how you're running. What everyone talks about is pronation, right? Pronation is really simple. I'm going to break it down because I'm a straight shooter. Pronation is just landing on the outside. You're going to land on your heel, you're going to land on the outside of your foot, and you're going to roll over. That's pronation. To what level and to how you do this is where you get to the terms like overpronation, severe overpronation, supination. But that assumes that everyone's the same way. So like, okay, this is flat and this is 45 degrees. Like we understand that because we've discussed that in mathematics. But just because someone's like over pronating, like their arches might be collapsing in, doesn't mean that they're going to get hurt. It doesn't mean that they run bad. It doesn't mean that, you know, whatever, that aliens are going to abduct them. I don't know. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that that's what they're doing. And they might not need any correction, but it's kind of become this stigma of like, well, I overpronate, or I need to go in like this type of shoe. Like, not necessarily. And so I want to talk about the different types of shoes, but remove the context of pronation in that so that you can understand what these shoes are doing. And then if you go into one, that's where you're going to be in. Okay? So when you're at the running shoe store, they're watching you walk or they're watching you run, and they're seeing that. And based on what they're seeing, they may or may not choose a specific type of shoe for you. Okay, so I talked about pronation, right? Pronation is just this. Dun, that's pronation. Overpronation will be when you come here and you collapse over. This is essentially a foot. This is your foot will roll over. So you'll come to the outside and you'll collapse in like this. This is your arch. Supination is you'll stay on the outside. So supination, you stay here. Pronation is just this motion, and overpronation is when you're collapsing in. Usually you have a really flat arch and your knees kind of turn in as well. Okay? Awesome. That was better than I thought I was going to do. I can talk way more about that, and I will in future videos. Okay, I'm going to have a little bit of scratch here, and then I'm going to talk about the different types of running shoes. Awesome. Okay, 3 types of running shoes that are, well, I guess maybe 4. 4 types, or 3.5 types of running shoes. And these 3 are going to be very important that most of people will traditionally be in. Okay? The first is going to be a neutral shoe. Now, what distinguishes a neutral from a supportive shoe or a motion control shoe? One main thing will do that. It's medial posting, okay? Like I said, lateral on the outside, medial on the inside. Said that in the beginning of the video. So this is a neutral shoe. There is no medial posting. There is no difference in material from the front to the back of the shoe, okay? A medially posted shoe will look like this. This is a Saucony guide. A medial posted shoe will show it by having a different color foam, or it will be shaded a little bit. It'll be gray, it might be red, it might be, might have a little bit of plastic, but whatever, you're gonna be able to notice the difference. They're gonna make it very visually distinct. Saucony does it by making a different kind of pattern on their foam. And what that means is this foam in the front, if I squeeze it, is fairly soft. This foam on the back is gonna be a lot harder. And what that's designed to do, I'm not necessarily going to talk about if it actually does it because the jury is kind of out on it, but what it's designed to do is if your foot is collapsing too far over, that harder material, that medial posting, that foam or that piece of plastic or whatever that company's doing is going to stop you from rolling in. It's going to stop your foot from collapsing in and keep it in a more neutral position, theoretically. In my experience, there's certainly shoes that, frankly, if you look at studies, the studies show that a motion control shoe or a shoe like this isn't going to stop pronation. But what it can do for people is provide a little bit more rigid of a platform that can help. It can also help align them a little bit better depending on the type of shoe and depending if it's actually built a little bit on a slant, that can help. So there's a need for it in a way, but not to the need that it's really prescribed for people. But people are going to have different views on this. And this is just my view on it. And I kind of want to give you an overview and not sway you too far into the category that I think, because that's not the goal here. The goal here is for you to just become really educated about shoes. And then you can read more and be able to make the decisions that you're looking for. So that's going to be the main difference from it, is the medial posting that you can see right there. Okay, now we're gonna go to like the big one, the motion control shoe. So motion control shoe is basically absurdly medially posted. You can see that this is so hard. I mean, it's like almost basically plastic that I'm pushing on. This is fairly soft. This is super plastic. It's so high medially posted. And you can actually see that in a way, some of the higher supportive motion control shoes are actually almost built on a slant like that, so that your foot's not letting your foot turn all the way over. And this is going to be, I should give some examples. So this is going to be like the Brooks Addiction, the Brooks Beast, the Ariel, the Omni, the Saucony Omni, the Saucony Hurricane, the Asics doesn't really make one, or Adidas doesn't really make one. The New Balance 860, that sort of stuff is going to be really, really motion control. Neutral shoes are kind of a dime a dozen. There's tons of them. Like Asics has the Nimbus and Cumulus, the Ride from Saucony, the Energy Boost from Adidas, or the Glide. Mizuno has the Rider. So lots of different types of shoes. They're recategorized as neutral if you're looking. And then supportive is like a pretty big range. There's like mild and more supportive, I guess you could say. So those are some examples. The shoe I have here to kind of recap, if I haven't, is the Asics Gel Nimbus, the Saucony Guide, and the Brooks Addiction. So those are the three main types of shoes. I said 3.5 because a minimal shoe would kind of sit by itself in a different category in a running shoe store. And again, what is a minimal shoe? Two things, right? Minimal shoe can be the amount of difference from the heel to toe, that offset, and it can be the amount of stuff, the stack height. So these shoes in most running shoe stores tend to sit kind of on another little butt of a wall, or they're segregated to another spot so that you can see them and identify them as such. Okay, awesome. What did I talk about? Minimal, talk about that. Okay, so yeah, when you go into a store, they're gonna look and watch you walk, and then they'll be able to try these different types of shoes on and see. And they're all gonna fit very different, like I had said, based on basically the manufacturing of them. And so you're gonna try in a bunch and be able to find the best shoe, the shoe that's gonna fit the best for you, which is the most important thing that you're looking for when you're talking about fitting for running shoes. There's so many different shoes out there, and there's really no big noticeable difference between, say, a Gel Nimbus and a Saucony Ride, because they're both neutral shoes. But what you're looking for is how the shoe feels. It's like you test a car, right? You go out and you drive a Honda Civic and a Toyota Corolla. A Honda Civic and a Toyota Corolla are the same type of car, but they're going to drive different. One's going to feel better. This one's got a better rearview mirror. This one has more leg room, whatever. And that's the stuff that's going to make you make that difference. So if you're having problems and you need to be aligned, you can look to more of a stability shoe. I don't recommend majority of the people going into motion control shoes unless you absolutely need it. And the jury's moderately out as to whether a stability shoe is actually, or a corrective shoe is actually providing you any sort of benefit. But they certainly do exist, and companies certainly sell them, and people wear them and have success that way. All right, so that's kind of the big breakdown. Yeah, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Next, I'm going to answer some questions in the No BS Run Club, people that ask me some stuff, and this is where I'm going to talk about a couple things that I didn't address because I know that there's questions because I've already looked at them. Yeah, I already shot this video once, by the way, and this one's so much better because I feel like I'm not as horrifically boring. And the dogs aren't barking too, so that's always good. Okay, sweet. Here we go. Awesome. Okay, so No BS Run Club. Shout out to you guys. Here's some awesome questions from them. So Maya asks, I have flat feet. Can you recommend the best type of shoe for flat feet? Okay, so in the beginning of the show, I talked about the last of the shoe, right? So having a more straight last. So if you have a flat foot, you want to have more of a straight last, because if your foot has an arch, it's going to be shaped more like this, because the arch will take, since you have an arch here, it takes away some of the width of your foot. If you have a fallen arch or you have a flat foot, then basically your foot looks like this. The toes and the heel are really close to being the same width, and so you want to look to more of a straight lasted shoe. Now, straight lasted neutral shoes exist, and they're actually really popular. The most popular straight lasted shoe is the Dyad, the Brooks Dyad. The second is the Asics Fortitude. The Dyad and the Fortitude kind of fight it out for being top, but the Dyad sells a lot more. I sell a lot of the Dyad, the Fortitude, and then another one is the Saucony Echelon. New Balance makes one. I can't remember what the name of it is, but they make a straight lasted shoe too. But again, you're going to want to find something that's straight lasted. That's going to help give your whole foot support. Because if you go into a shoe like this that's not straight lasted and you have a really wide foot, then your foot's going to be hanging off the side of it, and there's going to be nothing underneath that giving you any sort of support, giving your foot anything to land on. You just want to have your whole foot pressed on something. You don't want to have your whole foot standing on something like this and not having any support here. You want to be able to have it stand and be supported on a nice solid surface. All right. Different ways to lace shoelaces. So Jennifer and Elise ask about lacing techniques. So you can lace a shoe however you want. There's no right or wrong way to do it as long as your foot stays secure. So I just took this guy and laced it like this. This is a technique you can do for someone that has a higher instep. So the instep is like the top part of your foot. And if you have a really high instep, it just means your foot's, like if you look at it from the ground, your foot's kind of really poking up. And if someone has a normal crisscross lacing pattern, they might put a lot of pressure on the top of their shoe. But having this type of lacing pattern can let your instep press up and there's nothing pressing down on it. So you can lace it however you want. I'll post a link in the notes that is to a website. I can't think of the name of it now, but the guy has so many lacing techniques and you can lace them really up however you want. But there's no right or wrong way as long as your foot's feeling supported and you're not sliding around. Okay, April wanted to ask if she has a wide toe box and a thin ankle. April wanted to ask, wide toe box, thin ankle. Asics. Because what you're looking at for a thin ankle is tight heel counter. So this is the heel counter of the shoe. So you want something that's going to be a little bit tighter here as opposed to, say, a Saucony, which is going to be a little bit rounder, you can see. If you have more of a round heel counter, it's not going to feel as tight and your ankle is going to feel not like it's being grabbed. If you have a tighter heel counter like this, you're going to feel like your ankle is being held into the shoe. So Asics have a pretty tight heel counter. Mizuno has a pretty tight heel counter too. Those are the ones that you want to go with. And they both should be wide enough in the midfoot. They both should be wide enough in the midfoot that you'll be okay. Heather asks, how do you know when your shoes are shocked? So, and when it's time for a new pair. So traditionally you say between 300, 400 miles for a pair of shoes, which rough mileage estimates would tell you it's about 6 months. That varies from person to person. So some people can run 200, 300 miles and their shoes are feeling dead. So my wife's that way. Her shoes she tends to feel her shoes wear out pretty fast. She's also dealing with some foot stuff, so that's where that could possibly be coming from too. You'll know when you just start feeling the shoe feel dead, and that's the response that we get. Or you might be having like a little shin pain or something and nothing's changed, or your knees might just be feeling a little weird. Like that just means the shoe is worn out. We say 300, 400 miles, 6 months because it just gives you an idea to start thinking about it at about 6, 7 months. But some people wear their shoes for a year. I mean, I can wear my shoes for 1,000 miles if I'm running in Newtons especially and get 1,000 miles out of a pair and nothing hurts on me. And then so I'm just buying them because at that point they're just getting really, really worn down. You can definitely look to the bottom. If you start tearing through the rubber, if you start having a really big discrepancy in the heel from hitting, if it starts wearing almost down like a slant, then yeah, it's probably time for a new pair of shoes. You just want to kind of put it on your calendar, put a reminder. Some tracking apps like Strava, Runkeeper, those types of things have a way to track your shoes along with your run. So you log your run, you log your shoe, and you can have an idea of when it's time to change them. Winter beats the crap out of shoes, especially the shitty winter we had here in Boston. So salt, heat, going into the hot or going out into the cold, coming into the warmth, being on a treadmill, running running on salt, all of those different types of conditions beats the crap out of shoes, and it makes them really it just destroys them. So if you're running through an entire winter, what I usually say is after you get through that winter, to stop in and get a new pair of shoes. Like right around now, March, April, you're getting out of that last snow. It's a good time to do it. And Nicole asks the last question, which is specifically about minimal shoes. Clear up the myths about minimalist shoes, and then talking about switching between two pairs. So let's talk about switching between two pairs. If you can, it's a good idea to rotate multiple shoes in. One, the shoes will last longer if you rotate them in, because just like you having to recover, your shoe takes a really big beating every time it hits the ground. And if you figure how many times your foot hits the ground over the course of 1 mile, and then multiply that by multiple miles, different types of weather, the shoe really takes a beating. So the shoe has to recover in a way. It's possible to train in one pair of shoes. I've done it. I did it for years, and I still have like go-to shoes that I might use multiple times in a row during the week. But on a whole, if you can buy 2 pairs of shoes and rotate them in, you're going to be better off for the longevity reason and because you're going to provide a different stimulus to your body. So you figure running is an overuse sport, right? You're just doing the same repetitive motion all the time. If you can provide a little bit different stimulus to your feet and into your body by having a different shoe on, it can help to prevent some overuse injuries. And there's a study that showed that that's actually true, that runners that train in 2 pairs of shoes are less likely to get injured. I mean, it's one study, but it's certainly something to think about, that it showed a pretty significant difference. And I'll find that study and I'll post it in the links as well. Just have to dig it out of my archives. Now let's talk about minimal shoes. We talked about it. You guys should be an expert on that now, right? Minimal shoe is the difference from. Good. The difference from the heel to toe, minimal, and then the difference in the amount of stuff that you have. If you have a lot of stuff, it's maximal. If you have a little stuff, it's minimal. And then you're also looking at the difference from the heel to the toe and how that is. And 4 millimeters of difference or less is generally categorized as minimal. We grew up wearing shoes. Most of us grew up wearing shoes that are watching this video. Most of us grew up wearing shoes that were pretty restrictive. And so when you transition into a minimal shoe, and I use the word transition specifically because you need to adapt your body to do it. So you can go from running in a very traditional neutral shoe to something that's a lot more minimal by giving yourself time. Why do you need to give yourself time? You need to give yourself time because when you drop that heel down from 10 millimeters to say 0, your calf and your Achilles have to essentially lengthen and absorb that 10 millimeter difference that was once being given to you in the shoe. Now, every time that your calf and your Achilles essentially, you hit the ground, your calf and your Achilles are going 10 millimeters more, 10 millimeters more, 10 millimeters more, 10 millimeters more. And that takes time to adjust. And that can make your calves feel super sore, your Achilles feel super sore, just your lower legs in general. And it can cause, if you go too quick, you can have people with Achilles tears, calf strains, calf tears, and that sort of thing. So if you're going to transition into a minimal shoe, do it slowly. And here's the recommendation that I have. If you're going to go out for, say, a 4-mile run and you have a traditional running shoe and a minimal shoe, run 3.5 or run like a 1/4 mile in your good shoe or in your new shoe, your minimal shoe, and then come back to your house and run the rest of 3 3/4 miles in your normal shoe. Then what you're going to do is you're going to do that twice. The third run, you're going to run for 1/2 mile, and then you're going to do 3.5 miles. Then you're going to do that twice. And then you're going to do a 4th run for 3/4 mile, and then you see where I'm going. So you're giving yourself time. And then once you get up to 1 mile, 2 miles, you should be able to, you could probably move a little bit faster as long as you're feeling okay. But you're giving your body that time to change, because it has to change, because we're so used to wearing big honking shoes that all of a sudden we want to go out, we read Born to Run, and we want to go out and run with the, run with the Taumara and chase balls and run in a pair of sandals. And you're like, oh my God, my calves are like exploding. Well, it's because you're not used to it. And so you need to give yourself that time. I don't think that minimal shoes are for everyone. I don't. I coach people that run in Hokas. I would never run in a Hoka. I coach people that run in Asics. I hate running in Asics. I run in more of a minimal stuff, but like it's not across the board. I'm not one of these dogmatic people that say like you need to go out and buy like the most minimal shoe. Like if the shoe doesn't work, like then don't use it. If you can, the basic rule of thumb for minimal shoes or for anyone in shoes is wear the least drop you can, the least drop possible, and wear the lightest shoe possible with the least amount of support. The end. I could have said that 28 minutes ago and been done. That's really what you're looking for, and that's what I want to try to impress upon everyone. Wear the shoe that works for you. Frankly, fuck what everyone else is saying and just stop listening to all of them. If you have injuries and stuff, deal with them, but find what works for you. And if you're running in a Nimbus and you're feeling awesome and you're happy and healthy, then run in a Nimbus. If you run in a minimal shoe, then run in a minimal shoe. There's no need to be switching because some guy wrote a book that told you should do it. Because you don't have to. Take it from me. I sell shoes. I coach. All right. I'm not just running and have an opinion for one person. I've fit thousands of people at this point in time in 3 years. And there's no one way to look at it. There's no one way to run. There's no one shoe to run in. There's no one type of shoe to run in. And everyone else that's telling you that is thinking really closed-minded. I'm just being honest. So that's it. That's running shoes as a whole. Again, I could sit here for another hour and talk about all these different topics, but we really kind of covered the different types of shoes. We talked about motion. We talked about neutral, stability, motion control. We talked about upper, midsole, outsole, different types of construction there. And we answered a few questions. We talked about minimalism, right? The amount of stuff, maximal, minimal, and then also the difference from the heel to toe, more traditional, and then minimal. We covered a lot. this is gonna be something that I love to do. I like the setup, so we'll talk more about shoes, but we're gonna talk about all sorts of training stuff as well. So if you have any questions, email me, Ryan at Miles to Go Endurance, all one word and no two, spelled out TO, miles2goendurance.com. Or you can find me on Twitter, which is twitter.com/Ryan Knapp. So it's at Ryan Knapp, Knapp. Or you can find me on Instagram, and my Instagram is the same thing as my Twitter. It's at Ryan Knapp. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know any questions that you have, anything you want me to shoot another video to follow up on and talk more in depth. I'd be more than happy to. I hope you got a lot out of it. It was a lot of fun to do it, to condense all of this knowledge into 30 minutes. And feel free, rewind it, watch parts of it, ask specific questions, go into your running store, talk to people about it, join groups on Facebook, and just learn as much as you possibly can about running shoes. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to doing this again, and forever upward.